This is part 1 of a 2-part documentary. By the end of this video, you will have a question. In part 2, the science tries to answer it and fails beautifully. Imagine you are looking at a sonar screen in 2026, not at a myth, not at a legend, at a pattern. A line appears beneath the Arabian Sea, then another, then an angle, then a corridor, then a field of anomalies stretching outward into dark water for nearly 8 kilometers. 8 kilometers of structures where there should only be sand. Hold that image, because on the western coast of India, near the sacred city of Dwarka in Gujarat, a team of archaeologists is staring at something that refuses to be explained away. If those 8 kilometers belong to one coherent submerged system, we are not looking at a shrine or a collapsed dock or an isolated wall. We are looking at the ghost outline of a city-scale complex. And scale changes everything. Manhattan, the most famous urban island on Earth, covers roughly 59 square kilometers of land. An 8-kilometer corridor of structured anomalies beneath the Arabian Sea would not be larger than Manhattan in area, but it would be longer than the entire width of ancient Rome at its peak. It would be a city not discovered, but barely remembered, a city the ocean chose to erase. And here, at minute 2 of this story, you need to hold something in the back of your mind. Somewhere in the sediment of these drowned depths, researchers have found a biological signature. A signature that should not exist where it was found. Not a stone, not a wall, something organic, something living once. We will come back to that, because before Dwarka became an archaeological problem, it was already a memory, a sacred memory, a catastrophic memory, a memory of a city the sea took back. This is the story of Dwarka, a submerged distortion, an anomalous age, a place where myth, geology, and silence overlap. Long before sonar, long before bathymetry, long before divers and survey grids, Dwarka was already famous. In the Mahabharata, one of the oldest and longest epic texts in human history, Dwarka is the city of Krishna, a fortified maritime capital built on land reclaimed from the sea, a place of walls, roads, towers, and palaces shining over the western coast of India. The text describes its architecture with unusual precision, not vague superlatives, specific infrastructure, defensive moats, semicircular fortification walls facing the ocean, a purpose-built harbor with designated anchorage zones, multi-story structures, a grid of roads, bastions at measured intervals. For a mythological city, it reads more like an engineering report. And then comes the ending. After Krishna's death, a man named Arjuna watches from the shore. He sees the sea break its boundary. It surges into the streets. Buildings disappear one by one, and in moments, there's nothing left. Those are the words of the Mausala Parva. The ocean covered everything. The sea became placid, like a lake. No trace remained. Dwarka was just a name, just a memory. That is the text. Now here is the disorientation. For modern archaeology, Dwarka is not pure myth. Off the coast of present-day Dwarka and Bet Dwarka, underwater teams have documented something real. More than 120 stone anchors in triangular form, each with precisely drilled perforations, wall-like structural alignments of dressed basalt blocks, stairways descending into the seabed, pillar bases organized in rows, ceramic material spanning multiple periods. So, the text speaks of a drowned city, and the seabed answers back. But they do not agree on time. Traditional sacred chronology places the destruction around 3102 BCE, the beginning of Kali Yuga. Astronomical researchers, analyzing the planetary and eclipse references embedded in the Mahabharata itself, propose a more specific date, the Kurukshetra War beginning on November 22, 3067 BCE, with Dwarka's destruction following years later. Mainstream archaeology places the most secure marine remains considerably later, around the mid to late 2nd millennium BCE. Approximately 1500 years before the Common Era, 3 clocks, 3 dates, 1 coastline, and beneath that coastline, silence. You are not hearing waves, you are hearing absence. Because the seabed is full of shapes, and almost none of them speak clearly enough to settle the question. This is what makes Dwarka dangerous to certainty. To believers, it is proof. To skeptics, it is projection. To science, it is a site with just enough evidence to stay alive, and just enough ambiguity to remain unstable. And then, just when the case seemed manageable, a deeper anomaly appeared, not off Dwarka proper, but in the Gulf of Khambhat, 36 meters down. But before we go deeper into the water, we have to go back into the story. Because the drowning of Dwarka is not a random act of nature in the Mahabharata. It is a consequence that begins not on a coastline, but on a battlefield. The Kurukshetra War is the central catastrophe of the Mahabharata. It is a dynastic war between two families of cousins, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, fighting over the right to rule the kingdom of Hastinapura. The Pandavas are 5 brothers, the Kauravas are 100, and standing between them, as charioteer, as counselor, as the pivot on which the entire epic turns, is Krishna. Krishna is not merely a king in the Mahabharata. He is the divine-made human, an avatar of Vishnu, the preserver of cosmic order, born into a world that had fallen out of balance. He built Dwarka as a refuge. After the tyrant Kamsa was killed and the warlord Jarasandha launched 17 successive attacks on Krishna's people in Mathura, Krishna made a strategic decision. He did not fight a battle he could not yet win. He led his people westward to the sea, and according to the Vishnu Purana, the ocean itself yielded 12 yojanas of land, roughly 150 kilometers, so that Dwarka could be built. The divine architect Vishwakarma designed it, a city of gold and crystal, surrounded by gardens and moats, with a harbor facing west into the Arabian Sea. It was not a myth of a city. It was a myth that remembered what a city feels like when it is the center of the world. Then came Kurukshetra. Krishna tried to prevent the war. He traveled to the Kaurava court as a peace ambassador. He proposed that the Pandavas would accept just 5 villages, 5, in exchange for peace. Duryodhana, the Kaurava prince, refused. He tried to have Krishna arrested in court, and Krishna, in response, revealed his cosmic form, a body of infinite light, with multiple arms, holding the weapons of creation and destruction simultaneously. Dhritarashtra, the blind king, asked to see it, and was granted divine sight for just 1 moment. Then the war began. 18 days, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. On the first morning, before the armies charged, Arjuna, the greatest archer alive, looked across the field and saw his teachers, his cousins, his uncles, and he could not raise his bow. It was in that moment of paralysis that Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, arguably the most influential philosophical text in Indian history, delivered not in a temple, not in a palace, but between 2 armies, before a war neither side could survive whole. Krishna's message was precise. Do not mourn what must be done. The soul does not die. Dharma, righteous duty, must be upheld even when its cost is grief. Arjuna raised his bow. The war lasted 18 days. When it ended, the field of Kurukshetra was silent. The Kauravas were destroyed, but the Pandavas had won nothing that felt like victory. Millions were dead. And Gandhari, mother of the 100 Kaurava princes, who had blindfolded herself for decades out of solidarity with her blind husband, removed her blindfold for the first time and looked at what the battlefield had become. She turned to Krishna and she cursed him. You had the power to stop this. You chose not to. So I curse you. In 36 years, your people, the Yadavas, will destroy each other, and you will die alone in the forest like a hunted animal. Krishna accepted the curse without resistance, because in the architecture of the Mahabharata, he already knew. 36 years passed. The Yadavas, Krishna's own clan, grew prosperous, arrogant, and undisciplined. A group of young Yadava men mocked a group of sages, disguising one of them as a pregnant woman and asking the sages to predict the sex of the child. The sages, insulted, cursed the disguised young man to give birth to an iron mace. He did. Panicked, the Yadavas ground the mace to powder and threw the powder into the sea. But from the powder grew sharp reeds along the shore, and at Prabhasa, a sacred site near Dwarka, the Yadavas gathered for a festival. They drank, they quarreled. They picked up those reeds from the beach and beat each other to death with them. The curse had fulfilled itself from within. Balarama, Krishna's elder brother, sat in meditation beneath a tree and let his spirit leave through his mouth in the form of a white serpent. He was gone. Krishna walked into the forest alone. He sat beneath a tree. A hunter named Jara, whose name means old age, mistook Krishna's foot for a deer and shot an arrow. It pierced his heel, the one vulnerable point. Krishna looked at the hunter with calm eyes and said, "You have done what was necessary." And then he was gone. And on the 7th day after Krishna's death, Arjuna came to Dwarka to lead its people to safety. He organized the evacuation. He gathered the women, the children, the remaining Yadavas. He led them east, away from the coast. And as the last group crossed the city's outer wall, the sea moved, not slowly. The Mausala Parva does not describe a gradual flood. It describes a surge. The sea, which had been beating against the shores, suddenly broke the boundary that was imposed on it by nature. The sea rushed into the city. It coursed through the streets. The buildings became submerged one by one. In a matter of moments, it was all over. The sea became as placid as a lake. No trace of the city remained. Dwarka was just a name, just a memory. That is the mythological account. And it is important to hold it clearly, not as proof of anything, but as a record of how a civilization chose to remember a coastline it had lost. Because whether or not Krishna existed, whether or not the war of Kurukshetra unfolded exactly as the text describes, the memory of a city swallowed by the sea in a single catastrophic event is precisely the kind of memory that coastal people living through post-glacial flooding would pass down. Not as geology, as story. You are now deeper in the Arabian margin. The water is darker. The currents are faster. The rules change here. In December of the year 2000, during a routine marine pollution survey in the Gulf of Khambhat off the Gujarat coast, researchers detected something unexpected on their sonar screen. Geometric patterns, anomalous shapes at around 36 meters depth. 2 paleochannels, ancient dried riverbeds now submerged, flanked by rectangular and square formations measuring approximately 200 meters on each side. Not natural, angular, deliberate. Then came dredging operations, and from those drags, a collection of material that changed the conversation entirely. Carbonized wood, flint microliths, small stone tools consistent with a Mesolithic toolkit, pottery-like ceramic fragments, remnants of wattle and daub, the fired clay and vegetal fiber mixture used to build walls, fossilized bone, and a single human tooth. Then came the dates. The carbonized wood was sent to laboratories in multiple countries. The National Geophysical Research Institute in Hyderabad, a laboratory associated with Oxford University, the Federal Institute for Geosciences in Hanover, Germany. The results converged around the same number, approximately 9,500 years before the present. Pause. 9,500 years. That is not the age of a Bronze Age harbor. That is the age of the end of the Ice Age world. And on May 19th, 2001, India's Minister of Science and Technology stood before Parliament and announced that a submerged urban civilization had been found in the Gulf of Khambhat, potentially one of the most important archaeological discoveries in history. The world responded, and then science responded too. Now we have to slow down, because this is where most accounts speed up toward a conclusion. A radiocarbon date on wood does not date a city. It dates the death of the material sampled. That wood may have drifted. It may have been redeposited by ancient currents. It may have originated from older inland deposits carried by rivers into the Gulf over thousands of years. And in Khambhat, that matters more than almost anywhere else. The Gulf is one of the highest tidal range environments in Asia. Tidal ranges of up to 11 meters, currents regularly exceeding 5 knots, a sediment environment in constant motion, a place where context can be destroyed. Archaeologist D.P. Agrawal published his critique in Frontline in March 2002. No stratigraphic context, he wrote. Classic old wood effect. Iravatham Mahadevan added that dredging cannot securely associate dated material with sonar features. The political announcement had preceded the science, and when the science could not support the full claim, the investigation quietly stopped. No further major dredging was funded. No controlled excavation was authorized. No peer-reviewed publication appeared with the full site maps, methods, and contextual analysis. The case closed without a verdict. But here is the blind spot that most accounts miss. Even if the city claim was overstated, the depth itself still demands explanation. Because around 36 meters below the current sea surface, the geological record is unambiguous. In the early Holocene, roughly 9 to 11,000 years ago, that depth was not ocean floor. It was a river delta. It was dry ground or estuary or shallow floodplain. It was, in short, a place where people could live. The mechanism that drowned it is not mythological. It is paleoclimatic, and it connects Dwarka to something far larger than one ancient text. This is where the biological signature I mentioned at the beginning of our story becomes important. The most powerful evidence possible from these drowned zones would not be a wall. It would be a pollen grain. If sediment cores from these depths contain pollen assemblages from terrestrial vegetation, forest species, grassland, or cultivated plants, that would prove without argument that the seabed was once a living landscape. Even more significant would be freshwater microfossils, diatoms, freshwater ostracods, small crustaceans that cannot survive in marine conditions, any microscopic indicator of a freshwater or brackish environment preserved within a zone now fully marine. That kind of evidence does not require a city to matter. It proves the sea took something that was once land, and the question becomes not just what was there, but who. But who? That question does not have an answer yet. In 7 days, part 2 of this documentary arrives. The science returns to Dwarka, with better sonar, with better grids, with a claim so large that 3 international newspapers covered it in the same week. And then we will show you what happens when science cannot explain what it finds. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. We publish 1 documentary per week. Slow, precise, without easy answers. Part 2 in 7 days.